Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. I'm Ryan Keller from Thrive West Central. I'm the new executive director here, or newish still. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us for another exciting Emerging Stronger web series. Today we have Addison Pollock with us. He is the Director of Community Engagement at AARP Indiana and has served in his role for about 4 years. He works alongside volunteers and community partners to advocate for public policies and initiatives that make communities more livable for people of all ages. Addison has a master's degree in public affairs from Indiana University Bloomington, and he was born, raised, and currently lives in Indianapolis with his fiance, who is a wonderful and a generous nurse across the state as she travels around. Today, we are going to be discussing what it means to be an age-friendly community and how that has benefits on the economic side, the community side, and as well for groups of all ages throughout our region. So, Addison, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the invitation to speak this hour. This is great.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Folks who are on the webinar, feel free. You can have your camera on. You can have it off. We do ask that you stay muted. If you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, and we will try to answer them in real time. This is going to be a dialogue, a conversation, less of a formal presentation. So feel free as you have questions, pop them out, and we will do our best to field those in real time. We'll also do a question and answer session at the end, and we will try to keep this right at an hour. So first question, Addison. Tell us a little bit about AARP Indiana, what its role is, and really what you do on a day-to-day basis for communities throughout Indiana.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. So AARP Indiana, I always start with how we're structured, right? Because it explains a lot. So AARP is the national organization that represents people who are 50 years and older. So our mission is to empower people to live as they choose as they age. And AARP Indiana is one of the 50 state offices plus Washington, D.C., the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico that implements that mission locally. So we do this across the state. We're based in Indianapolis. I like Ryan mentioned, I live here and I work downtown. In pre-COVID, I worked downtown. Now I'm working from home, and a lot of the time that I spent working was traveling to different communities across the state. And the way we prioritize our work is through target communities. And currently my two target communities that I work in are Fort Wayne and Evansville, Indiana. So I've seen every inch of I-69, and it's fun when I get to take those trips and work with teams of volunteers in each of those communities, but I also get to work with community partners on some of our strategic priorities, because what we really try to do is help older adults, so 50 plus. I know that not everyone in that age group deems themselves older, but they're 50 and older. So really what we do is we try to work with them to make sure that we have policies in our communities, whether it be at the state or local level, that make their community a better place to live and makes their life a better life to live. So that's the gist of it is basically that.
Well, that's excellent. That really aligns well with what we're trying to do here with our organization in Thrive West Central. That was one of the reasons that we changed our name. We used to be West Central Indiana Economic Development District, and legally we still are. We're doing business as Thrive West Central, but one of the catalysts to get a different name was really to re-engage with our community and really connect on a more, so to speak, intimate level, because As West Central Indiana Economic Development District, you thought solely of economic development. However, our organization is very broad, where we do not only economic development, we do community development, we do transportation planning and research collection. We're also the area agency on aging and disabled resources. We have, dozens and dozens and dozens of programs across all the different spectrums of work. And in its purest form, what we distilled down to really what it is that we do is we try to help our communities thrive, our individuals thrive, to lead better and more prosperous lives here in West Central Indiana. So it's a great connection with what AARP is trying to do, and it really aligns well with what I think we do, what our mission is as an organization here for our region. So, Addison, you and I first connected in 2019, the fall of 2019, in Fort Wayne. There was a conference that we were both attending, and Addison was presenting, and he presented. What we are going to dive in today about is what the age-friendly community program was, or is, for that matter, and it really resonated with me right away, because it just kind of made sense. And he had some really fascinating, and I'm going to let Addison talk about it here in a moment, but some really fascinating data connections of what older individuals are looking for versus kind of what folks who are just coming out of college and starting their career are looking for. And there was quite a few similarities. And so as we're a region facing not only an aging population, but more so a population decline in our region, one way that we could combat this is taking an age-friendly community approach to kind of recruit other individuals into our community because of the quality of life that we are providing here for our citizens. So Addison, why don't you kick us off a little bit and tell the folks really what the age-friendly community program is, and why it's such a great idea and concept for a region.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for teeing that up, Brian. So basically what the age-friendly community program is it falls under AARP's livable communities work. So this is AARP's pivot that we've made over the past 15 years or so, 20 years, to work in local communities, because we know that at the local level, that's where we're having maybe the greatest impact that we can. And the way our communities are set up, doesn't always it doesn't always foster longevity for folks. So like living in their homes, when you think about your community's housing stock, transportation systems, healthcare systems, things like that, you kind of think, well, how can someone who is older navigate that over time? It's not always the easiest thing. And there's one data point that's I don't mean to scare anyone on the call, but it's really important because this is basically the impetus for all of our age-friendly work that we do. So by 2035, for the first time ever in U.S. history, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. So more 65 plus individuals living in the U.S. than under age 18 for the first time ever. So with that, we really thought, okay, this is a challenge, right? Our population is rapidly aging, but we can also look at this as an opportunity. And I know that's kind of a cliche to flip it on itself, but we really can start to look at our communities in a different way. And it's really not too different than what communities are already doing for talent attraction, retention, fighting brain drain, things like that. Ryan touched on really good statistics that I had described in my presentation in Fort Wayne. But so let me just touch on a few of those. Let me break it down for you. So people who are 50 plus, 77% of them, according to an AARP Public Policy Institute study, prefer to live in their community as long as possible. 76% also prefer to remain in their current homes. And we wanted to take a further look at that. And when you consider some of the surveying that's been done by the National Association of Realtors, you start to notice that both millennials and boomers, and also the silent generation and greatest generation, they actually prefer a lot of the same amenities and communities. So, and services. So, according to this one 2017 study, both millennials and boomers essentially mirror one another in their preferences for homes with smaller yards in exchange for being able to walk to places they need to go. So being able to easily access amenities that are adjacent to their neighborhoods, or even in their neighborhoods. So that's a really key data point there that we like to lean on, because it shows that, maybe we need to broaden the scope of when we are marketing our communities to not talk only about how it benefits younger adults who are, landing their first job or their first couple jobs in their careers, but also how do we retain individuals who are retired, or help them thrive over time and share some of their gifts and their experiences with the community. Older adults have a lot of resources at their fingertips. I think it's, according to the AARP Oxford economics study, longevity economy, trying to find the data point here. So the 50 plus population in the United States owns 83% of US household wealth. So you have a lot of wealth, a lot of disposable income, when you consider Social Security, things like that. When you think about Medicare, that's a lot of Medicare dollars that are being spent too. So and they also have time. They can volunteer their time, and they also offer a lot with their experience in the community. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you say that percentage again? What is the percentage of individuals who, and what percentage of wealth do they hold in the
Sure.
United?
Yeah, so it's individuals who are 50 years and older. So I say 50 plus a lot. I need to get over that. But it's individuals who are older than 50 years old. They own 83% of US household wealth. 83%.
I mean, that's if if you're looking at long-term community development and economic development and long-term just sustainability for your communities, that is a earth-shattering statistic right there, that 83% of the wealth is held by individuals who are 50 and older. And it makes sense. It makes sense. We work, we save throughout our entire life. And then we have, most individuals have some sort of a nest egg when they are going to retire. So I think when we start to look at, who are some of these maybe key stakeholders for revitalization in our communities, it really is that 50 and older population who we should be trying to engage.
Absolutely. And just to continue on the statistics, according to the same study, the Oxford economics one, in Indiana, 45 older adults, 50 years and older, account for 45% of state and local taxes. So when you think about the wealth factor, you also think about the impact on the tax base of communities. It's critical to retain individuals in your community as well as attract them, right? I mean, you don't want an out migration. You want to retain your population and help them build the community together with you. And that is kind of what the age-friendly community program is. You want me to touch a little bit more on that, Ryan, on the program?
Yeah, you're welcome to. Give me one moment. I'll interject here on that
Yeah.
last statistic about the tax base and growing the tax base. So here within the West Central region, we see that declining population, which means our tax base is getting smaller and smaller and smaller in our communities, and so it makes it much more challenging from a community basis, especially if we're trying to engage with local governments and municipalities to help partner and create opportunities, say for a walkable community. A lot of those are tax dollars that we use for local matches on grants. When you see that tax base shrinking, well, there's just less dollars to go around when it is coming for opportunities. And so that's one of the bigger issues that I know we have been working on here at Thrive West Central, is trying to engage with a lot of our local groups, government focused, nonprofit, for-profit institutions, of how do we give more opportunities to increase that tax base? How do we get that population to come back into our local communities, and live and spend some of their resources there to grow that tax base, because it's all interconnected. And as you see one issue start to slide, say population, that has rippling effects through all of the programs that a lot of us, in our neighbors, our family members, our communities access in order to provide resources to our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is all connected. And that's kind of why AARP has kind of taken this position that we need to make our communities places where people can stay long term. Not only because institutional care, residential care facilities are incredibly expensive for the individual, but there are just you can live your life, a better life in your community, and your community can benefit from it, as you pointed out. So it's critically important.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Please continue on and tell us a little bit more about the age-friendly community program and what that looks like.
Sure, thanks. Um, so what the age-friendly community program is a commitment made by elected officials and older adults in the community to actively work together to make their community a better place to live at every stage of life. And I know that's really broad, and I'll talk a little bit about the framework that we use in a minute. But how this program is set up is that an elected official, so executive leadership in a community. So we have age-friendly communities of all shapes and sizes in our network. I think there's more than 500 communities in the network of age-friendly communities right now. So we have cities and towns, we have counties, and we even have states. I can't remember. There's only a handful of states. I think it's like 7 or 8 at this point, but most are cities and towns. So what it is the executive leadership of a city would be the mayor, or a town would be town manager, or a county would be a county commissioner or the county commission. Those folks would sign a letter making a declaration that they're committing to making their community a better place to live for people 50 years and older, but of all ages. And then that kicks off this process. So from there, an advisory council is formed locally. It must include older adults, but it can also include business leaders, nonprofit leaders, subject matter experts, the whole gamut, government staff and liaisons to help work through the process. But it's a way to encourage older adults to take an active role in shaping their communities. This process is a 5-year rolling process. So once that executive letter is signed and submitted to AARP National, it kicks off this process where you start to do some fact finding, right? The first year is all about learning what is the quote unquote state or the status of the age-friendly nature of your community. So you look at things like transportation, housing, outdoor spaces, and facilities. Those are the built environment domains, we're calling them. And then there's also the social domains, which are more like social participation, access to healthcare, things like that, respect and inclusion. So it really looks at the things that are tangible in your community and also the intangibles in your community that make people feel valued and that they can actually contribute to what's happening in their community. So once you conduct that survey, that's year one, and then it goes into second year of coming up with an action plan. So a plan is only as good as its use, right? So if you're just putting a plan together and it's going to sit on a shelf, it doesn't have a lot of use. I wouldn't recommend doing this. going through this process. But if you're interested in making changes, sustainable long-term change, positive change in your community, I would recommend this process because your survey that you conduct will inform where are the pain points in your community, where can you what are the low-hanging fruit that you can problems that you can address and have the biggest impact with, what are the long-term solutions that need to be implemented through maybe a policy or something like that. So really it's the whole gamut. And then once you're, I think it's year 3 through 5, you're spending that time trying to implement that plan. And then the last year, you write an evaluation report, send it off to AARP National. They approve you for another 5-year program. So it's a rolling program. The thing is, I think a lot of people get caught up in, well, if we commit to doing this action plan, do we have to complete that within the 5-year time frame? No, all you have to do is demonstrate that you're making progress towards those goals that you've set out. So it's really a strategic plan in a way, but it's aimed at older adults in our community, and really the bones of our communities. Really quickly, we have 3 age-friendly communities in the state of Indiana. So Fishers, Indiana was the first in 2017. Fort Wayne joined the network in 2019. And then our first age-friendly county, St. Joseph County, joined at the beginning of last year. So there's already some Hoosiers who are, doing this good work. And if you are interested in learning more about where they are in the process, I'd be happy to connect you with those folks as well.
Thank you, Addison. So personally, I'd like to see our whole region kind of become an age-friendly region, for a number of different reasons. One, because just going through that planning process, I think is really going to be invaluable. For us to take a real hard internal look with what we're doing in each of our communities. All of us are really connected. All the folks here on the call, we're all really connected to our communities and helping them improve and grow and provide better lifestyles or accommodations for all the members that live there of any age. So going through this type of kind of self-assessment, so to speak, and research and fact-finding mission, I think will be eye-opening, and it will really lend itself to a lot of other opportunities down the road just by partaking in this. And then 2, really, it starts to connect the dots, I think, between what are some of the real struggles in our communities, the needs that we've been all beating our heads up against the wall of how to start to overcome. It really starts to put those in perspective with the opportunities that are available from an economic development, from a community development standpoint, from just a senior living standpoint, and also then I think more rightly so from attracting new individuals that are younger to live into our communities. So I kind of see this as a holistic process that we could really engage on as a region, but then also on the more minutely on the local level, and really have some lasting impacts for change, of quality of life, and hopefully reverse that kind of population decline that we're seeing within our region.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's just a great way to frame some of the issues in your community, right? We're all working on these issues right now. It's not like the age-friendly community program is going to kick off and an entirely new project. It might just add an aging lens to what you're already doing today, and people of all ages love that a community is compassionate and values all the members in their community. And I think that that's really attractive when people are looking to relocate. It's also a way for people to get involved in their community too. So it's a great way just to show that this community is looking forward and trying to improve upon its existing assets, but then what are the weakness points, what are the weaknesses, where can we make improvements? And for people who care about their community, it's a really cool program. I recommend it. We still have we still haven't cracked the top 5 age-friendly communities in the state yet, or the first 5, I should say. So there's room to be in that first 5 communities who are making this a priority. So I would highly recommend it. If anyone on the call is interested in this program, get in touch with me. I think Ryan and the team can send out my contact information afterwards. And I'd be happy to schedule a call with you just to talk more about it. There's a lot of benefits to joining the program. So really, really good stuff.
Yeah, yes, thank you for that. I know that we will be engaging with a lot of our local officials to try to promote this and really get that kicked off, and see who are interested parties. They're not on the call. They're not on the call. He's not on the call right now. I don't believe so, but I know we've discussed this in brief with Mayor Clint Lamb down in Sullivan, who has been doing some amazing things. And I look to have conversations with some of our other local mayors to start there and see if we can really get some traction behind this. So, one thing I like to do on these types of webinars, I really think it's kind of gives us the opportunity to dream big a little bit, to have this as a great space to throw out some ideas, to solve some of these larger programs or problems that we're facing in our region. And this is where I'd like to encourage some participation, maybe from folks who are on the call here, while I digress and kind of go into a crazy idea of kind of how I'm looking at our region to a certain degree one way, and again, this is in theory, so don't beat me up too bad, but this is in theory of a way to kind of start putting some of the pieces together to solve this population decline that we see so much in our region. So, more of the traditional models of attracting folks to your region is job creation, and with high paying jobs. And of course, there is migration in when you have numerous jobs, especially high paying jobs. You do get folks to migrate into your region. However, just kind of spitballing here a little bit. I see that there can be problems with that, because generally the folks that are coming for those jobs are generally in their midlife stage. They can be married with children, and it's a little harder to uproot those folks and switch schools. There's a lot more complexity in with that. So it takes, in my mind, it takes quite a bit of effort to get somebody in a family to move in, uproot from where they're going, and come want to live and plant roots down in our region. One idea that I've been kicking around is, why don't we approach this from a little bit of a different angle? Let's make this almost a destination of such a great age-friendly community for folks who are retiring, and and they have a large portion of wealth, to come and migrate in from other areas to West Central Indiana because of all the great amenities that we have for an aging community. We have nice, smaller, houses with smaller yards. We have walkability. We have a trails network. We have those amenities that those folks are looking for, and then start to engage the folks who have retired, who are trying to find ways to fill their time in with our local students. We have 5 universities within our region. We have a huge young student population that generally leaves after they graduate. So let's start creating programs and activities to engage those students, and get them to want to stick around and stay. They're leaving to go to Fishers, Indiana. Well, why are they leaving to go to Fishers, Indiana? Oh, it's because they have a more developed recreational trail network. It's because there's more, things to do. From a coffee shop standpoint, or a microbrewery, or small restaurants, or there's a Top Golf, so on and so forth. Well, why don't we help them try to give them the support to create those activities here, to inspire entrepreneurship, to inspire a new generation of entrepreneurs and businesses to strike up and say, hey, West Central Indiana has a lot of great things going for it. Stay, check it out. And the reasons you might be leaving are all solvable problems that we can work on together. So you have this older generation that is retired, that has years of life experience in business mentorship, and maybe even the financial capacity to provide some of their dollars for in investment opportunities as angel donors or just small business investment, and provide that mentorship capability and almost replace your middle. So don't focus all in the middle all at once, jobs, jobs, jobs. Let's take a different approach, try to recruit in our wealthier elderly folks, give them really great reasons to want to stay, retire, and go through their end of life here. And then have that used as almost a catalyst or an incubator for our already captive young audience at all these universities and colleges in our area, and give them the reason to stay and grow into be that middle group that maybe we're desperately trying to attract. Now, again, that's just me. That's Ryan Keller being kind of big and bold and throwing a huge big idea out there. But what if? What if? And how do we start that? Maybe by getting that age friendly designation in our region. Maybe that's the first step. And again, it's just an idea. It's a crazy idea. But we can open this up if anybody would like to comment or throw anything else out there.
Yeah, and as questions are coming in, Ryan, I will say you're not crazy in dreaming big like that, because that's sort of what this program is designed to do, right? It's designed to say, like, okay, we might not be able to do something tomorrow, but what can we do in the next 5-10 years down the line? In one of those domains, the framework that I was discussing earlier, which we base the age friendliness, quote unquote, of a community on, is civic participation and employment. So when you're talking about mentorship programs, entrepreneurial programs, intergenerational connections, right? That's those are keystone issues to the age-friendly program, and exactly the type of work that we're trying to drive, to promote. It's that creativity that really is key to making a community and truly age friendly. There are the traditional things that most communities identify, lack of public transit or lack of affordable home health care, things like that. But if you look at it from a drawing on the assets that exist in your community, or the assets that you're trying to attract, that experience of the individual who's 50 years and older, who may be retired and wants to give back, there's so much potential just to bridge that to the younger generation who might need some like you said, mentorship, professional support. Maybe they need some startup funding for whatever the restaurant they're trying to start downtown. There's a lot of overlap with things that the local chambers of commerce are doing, as well as our planning entities and local governments. So it's, as you mentioned, the age-friendly community program is just a way to kick off the conversation, and it provides that existing structure, that existing framework to really make progress, intentional progress on these issues.
Yes, absolutely. And from my lens, from my perspective with the organization, there's a lot of we have a lot of really great things going on in our region, in noticeable difference. Noticeable differences in our in our cities and in our towns throughout our region, of making it more accessible to everyone. And you're starting to see these smaller pop-up businesses come about in a lot of our local communities. And I really see a huge connection into taking this now and really running with it, to create those kind of opportunities. I know as the area agency on aging and disabled services, one of the key objectives of what we do is to get individuals who are aging to stay in their homes as long as possible, because
Yes.
we all feel comfortable in our homes. We all want to stay there as long as possible. So as you create community resources structured and built around aging, you really kind of kick up that economic engine for what are the possibilities that we have to create new and thriving businesses within our community to help those individuals. um, I want to, and I may not have all my facts correct in this, but there is a town, and I want to say I think it's Eclair, Wisconsin. I think that's where Eclair, Wisconsin. It might be Minnesota, but regardless, I know that there's a town that a friend of mine's mother, she moved to in retirement because they catered and marketed to an aging and retirement population. And she lived out the rest of her entire life there. She got very engaged. She was a business mentor. She did a lot of mentorship to younger folks. She really thrived in this community that had it kind of all tied together that way. And that's really kind of what got me thinking on that big bold idea, is just that story from that individual of how he was really discussing the community connection and development that they had, of how they really took folks who had lived remarkable lives, as business professionals, and found ways to really engage them all throughout the younger generation throughout their entire community, and at the same time really make accommodations and meet their needs and what they were looking for, as folks who have fulfilled a lot of their day-to-day duties and employment, and now they're looking to really enjoy the finer things in life. So it was a really good model, and I'll have to look that up to see if I can find the exact town and maybe do some research that way and share that out with this group. But nonetheless, I think we have a golden opportunity here within our region to start to connect a lot of our assets, to what we have going. Uh, and it looks like Allison Finzel said that's why Florida is so attractive to 50
Yeah.
plus. That in the warm weather, Allison.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't.
4 days of sunshine and warm weather.
You can't compete with the warm weather, but Florida has a huge network of age-friendly communities. Actually, they have so many age-friendly communities that they have a statewide age-friendly network call every month, where each of the communities, whether it's Tampa or Orlando or wherever, they all get on a call and they talk about what are the issues that they're experiencing, when trying to implement their action plans and various projects. It's actually really cool. Florida's doing great work in respects to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it
Yeah,
looks like we have a couple questions here. Michael
sure.
Pierce said that I believe that the availability of quality healthcare is important as this age group grows older. I couldn't agree more. Addison, what does AARP say about that?
Yeah, so health services is critically important to the age friendly program and ARP's priorities, generally speaking. Whether it be at the state level or national level, or and local level, we're always focusing on access to healthcare, expanding it, strengthening it, making sure that folks can afford it, but also that it is available in their area. They don't have to travel far for health services. Right now, in Fort Wayne, the age-friendly council up there has come up with their of the 8 domains of livability that I've been discussing. They decided that they're going to focus just on 3 going forward for this first round of the 5-year program. And health services and wellness is one of those. So part of the process going forward, that group is looking at what are the issues, what are the goals that we want to put out there, and frame them in a SMART goal sort of fashion. So is it affordable home health care? Like, is there a lack of that in the community because people want to age in their homes? So really looking at those, but also consulting experts who work in that sector going forward. Because, you know, as an age-friendly council, you're not going to have all the answers right there. There's a lot of knowledge and information in the community that you can draw on, professionals who have really good experience with these issues. And then from there, you as an age-friendly council are more of a facilitator. You're the impetus driving the issue. You're raising awareness, drawing attention to something that maybe a health professional knows is an issue, but doesn't really have the finesse to take care of themselves. You can bridge what those concerns are to policymakers, decision makers, etc. It's a really powerful and important process, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of tied in a little bit on those 8 pillars within this that this age-friendly council is doing. Gabe Cheek is our technical advisor on this call. Gabe, if you're still listening, we'd like you to throw up that graphic, please. That would be
Yeah,
terrific.
thank you.
And Addison, I'm going to turn it over to you to go ahead and walk through what this
Sure.
is with the group.
Sure. So I've been referencing this 8 domains of livability. Uh, these are the pillars of what we consider an age-friendly community. Of it's the foundation for an age-friendly community. So above the three at the top are the built environment aspects. So I think I talked about how transportation and housing are really popular. So when we look at housing, we look at our housing stock. Is it accessible? Is it affordable? And when I talk about accessibility, I'm talking about like visitability. So can individuals age in place if they have a 2-story home, or do they have a diverse housing stock in your community? Are you planning for that? Or is it mostly single family homes built for the nuclear family? But really, in reality, most people who own homes are either living alone or they're empty nesters in our communities. Transportation. So public transit is a huge aspect of this. A lot of times public transportation, it comes down to funding. So maybe there's an initiative happening that you can better organize and work with elected officials to enhance public transportation in your community, or maybe with the comprehensive analysis that public transit corporations do every 5 years. Maybe we take a more active role in shaping that. Where can we make public transit go in our community to get the biggest bang for our buck? Also, walkability. Ryan had talked about that earlier. Vision Zero programs, which are basically ways to look at our communities so that we're lowering traffic fatalities, especially for pedestrians, making sure that our communities are safe and walkable and can easily be navigated without the fear of simply without the fear of getting hurt or dying. So transportation is huge, and making sure that it's not just transportation, but looking at the way the amenities that we have near our residential areas. Can people easily get to things that they need, whether it's a corner store, grocery store, pharmacy, things like that. All of those things rank really high when it comes to both millennials and older adults. So outdoor spaces and buildings, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's a lot of the work that you're already doing, making sure that there are parks and places for people to relax. But when I talk about putting an aging lens on maybe like a park master plan or something like that, it's the aging lens is, what are the features in the park that resonate with older adults? Are there benches and spaces, and whether it's like a gazebo or just places for people to gather and have to sit and rest and enjoy nature? There are things like that. We put a lot of emphasis on playgrounds and whatnot for family attraction, and that's all good and great, but how are we looking at these things that we're already doing but for an older population? And then the lower pillars are the social environment. So we talked about health services. Communication and information is critical. Not everyone can, jump on a Zoom call or, easily access the internet. What are the programs that our libraries are offering to help folks get online and adopt broadband and high-speed internet in their homes? Show the value of connecting online, but also look at it as a way of thinking like, well, maybe we don't just put public notices online. Maybe we still need to publish those in the newspaper. What are other ways that we're reaching, meeting people where they are to get them the information they need? Civic participation in employment, we talked a little bit about that. A lot more on the employment side. When it comes to civic participation, you might do a scan of all the boards in your community and look at them and analyze them and think, well, what age groups are we missing in these boards and these stakeholder groups that are working to improve the community? It's important to get younger adults involved, but it's also important to have that intergenerational mix. Respect and social inclusion. I mean, simply put, I think a lot of older adults feel that they're not valued in communities sometimes. There are, unfortunately, people make remarks like, oh, older adults are takers, right? They don't contribute anything to community. I've heard that before, like, they're drag on the tax base or whatever the lies that are put out there. Really, older adults provide so much value to communities. I think I talked about it earlier. Time, resources, such as they have their own money, the disposable income. They have the experience. So bringing folks into the fold and making sure that they can connect and build on what their assets are is really important. And then social participation is key in that too. I think in the survey there's an emphasis on intergenerational activities. So one of the survey questions is, are there programs that link up older adults and younger people in schools? I don't know. Are there, like, is there value to that? Really kind of looking at what programs, policies, and amenities and assets exist in our communities and how we might want to build on those. If you're doing something really well, maybe you don't put a lot of time and effort in that, and you keep it going. If you have a really nice park system, you don't really prioritize that. Maybe you need to do more on the housing front or the civic participation front, things like that. So this is really the way that we frame this issue. The first year of the program, you conduct a survey, and all of the questions stem from these 8 domains. And it's a really cool tool to have, to look back on that data and think, okay, what are goals and objectives that stem from this particular data point? So I mean, those are the 8 domains of livability. If you have any questions on those, I'd be happy to answer them. Unfortunately, the communities in Indiana, the age-friendly communities in Indiana, are relatively new. So I think Fisher's joined the network in 2017. They just released an action plan last year, at the beginning of last year. And one of the priorities that they're working on is housing. They're looking to adopt an accessory dwelling unit policy in their zoning code. So to allow for what are known as granny flats or in-law suites, things like that, smaller livable units that can be built on your parcel or property to house an older loved one or someone you're caring for, things like that. So it's really cool. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of things that you can use the framework to accomplish. Ryan had touched on several of those earlier, but really it's a framework that you can apply to a local context. And I think that's one of the greatest values of this program.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the 8 domains of livability before we turn that slide off? I want to keep it up here if you do. Okay, Gabe, go ahead and take her down. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, so I think Addison made a lot of really great, really great statements when he was explaining that, and I know I wholeheartedly believe and really I just appreciate an aging population. I look at it as I seek wisdom from those who have lived life. Quite often, I have quite a few mentors that are definitely over 50 and 60 and 70, and even some in their 80s and 90s. And I've learned a lot throughout my life, and I think that they are true assets to our community. And we do ourselves a disservice when we don't engage and find meaningful ways to really keep members of our community engaged in our society and our civic engagement. We miss out on a lot, and it's easy to neglect folks as they age. But I think this program is really all about trying to find ways to not do that, and trying to find ways to keep them engaged, to really be a benefit to our community, and then therefore receive benefits in return. It's really a win-win scenario for everybody involved. So I think that this is a really great opportunity to re-engage a population that maybe does feel neglected within our region. Uh, Debbie had an interesting comment here earlier, and she wanted to know if we had any suggestions for rural areas that have little to no transportation. People actually travel on their lawnmowers to get somewhere. She thought that we had very decent health care, but the costs are high. I don't have much of an answer on the cost of healthcare. I think that's going to continue to climb, perhaps. But Debbie, I have seen many people travel on their lawnmowers. I grew up in a rural community, so I just thought that was normal. It wasn't until I got out of here that I was like, oh, you're really not supposed to do that. I say that jokingly, but nonetheless, a lot of our regions, really, all 6 counties have a transportation model for seniors. And Jessica Taylor, if you're on this call, Jessica is our director of aging and disabled services here. Gloria Wetnight's also on the call. She's our strategic business strategist. And they both have a lot of familiarity with our rural transportation programs and our senior and disabled transportation programs in the region. So I know that we, as an organization, we operate in Vigo, Park, and Vermilion counties. In Vigo County, we actually do rural transportation. So we give rides of any age for folks who are outside of the city and coming in, or inside of the city and going out. If you're in the city and transporting within that falls under the Terre Haute Transit Authority. We yield to them. And then we do senior and disabled transportation for folks directly in Park and Vermilion counties. However, I believe I'm trying to think of the Putnam County Rural Transit does that in Putnam County. For Clay County, it's the Clay County Senior Center. And then for Sullivan, I believe it's Ride Solutions for those communities. And they are for this Clay County Senior Center and Ride Solutions out of Sullivan County. They are for 60 and older as well, and they operate multiple days a week. So they do have some of those there, but I do understand that there is a need more, or there's been talk of a perceived need to get more public transportation to individuals, especially who live out in a rural setting. So I think it's a really great conversation to have, and I have no qualms having that kind of conversation. What it generally comes down to is finding a cost-effective way for communities to do rural kind of public transportation. There's some creative ways to do that I've just kind of recently been discovering, but nonetheless, if anybody on this webinar would like to have a sidebar conversation about that, please reach out to me sometime, and we can set up a time to talk. But that's all really great. That's a really great question of how to get folks who live in a rural setting to maybe more of an urban setting where you might find some of these amenities.
Yeah, definitely. So many communities are looking at transportation. You're not alone in that. And like Ryan said, there are already transportation services in a lot of these rural counties and in areas. It's just all about strategically looking at those services and how do you build on them, or how do you streamline things to make them more enhance their service and reach folks who actually need those programs. So, I'm not going to lie, there is an advocacy element to this program too, right? So if you're thinking, well, I mean, by joining the network and entering this program, you're not necessarily talking about we need to increase taxes to support older programs and infrastructure that support older adults. You can build a lot of this into what you're already doing, but when it does come time to, okay, maybe we need to look at injecting some funding into a service because there's greater demand for it, you can have that conversation, and it's a great forum to do that. It's a great framework to say, well, we've looked at this issue and our needs assessment says that we do need to strengthen our public transit in our rural areas. So how do we do that going forward? It's just a great way to kick off the conversation and make some progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're putting those together, I always go back on the data. You got to have the data to back it up. So as
Yep.
you're doing your needs assessment and we're creating these plans, and then we're going out to do some advocacy for it. What does the data really show? Because you got to have the data to back it up. I've learned that time and time again throughout my career. You got to have the data to back up your statements. So with that, this gives another opportunity to really start mapping data on that local level for what you're trying to accomplish. Addison, Wayne Langman said he had a question here.
Mhm.
He said, having sat on a few of these, I get the feeling that a community has a population of around 50,000. What does a town of 5,000 or less do? How can you speak a little bit, to the smaller towns that are in the network of AARP who are doing this, maybe outside of our state even? And are there templates and models for small towns and how they really want to engage? And is there a difference between how a small kind of town of 5, 10, 15,000 operates this program versus a larger city? In our area, it's Terre Haute's the anchor city of
Sure.
a population over 50,000. So is there a difference in how we go about starting to do this?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely ways that rural areas and smaller communities are navigating the livability issues, right? I think I shared in the chat, there's a member list. There's a link to the member list of all the communities across the United States. And if you scroll down, you'll see all the states, and then you can click a drop down arrow and you can see the name of the community, when they joined, and actually their population. So I'm looking at like Bellbrook, Ohio has a population of 7,200. All the way to Cleveland, Ohio, which has a huge population. So there are models out there. I can't speak to all of them, but if you're interested in connecting with some of those smaller communities, that's one of the great things about this program, is that you literally enter a network of communities who are seeking to make the same sort of improvements. There's opportunities for technical assistance and things like that. And there's a way to connect you with those communities that look like yours who are facing similar issues. So definitely one of the great benefits. And I encourage you to look at that, check out that link, and research some of the communities that are listed there.
And thanks for sharing that, because I'm a big believer that you don't have to solve that problem by yourself. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I do that a lot. I've been here for about 18 months in my role, and I think I've spent a good portion of that looking at other communities around the United States and what they have done, and trying to learn from them. Not only the areas that they benefit and their successes, but also from their missteps. So you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. I think that this right here would be a great way for smaller communities to connect with other small communities around the country who might be 1, 2, 5 steps ahead of them, to say, hey, let us learn from you. What would you do differently? What did you do? And help us get us going. And I know that all of us here at Thrive, we would be more than happy to engage. We are a regional organization that serves the entire region, but all of our communities make up that region. So we're ready and willing to plug in and engage wherever we can, and offer whatever value, and even to be the driver behind some of these programs, just because we really see the value, and we see the long-term value in what we're trying to accomplish here to make West Central Indiana really as great as it possibly can be, to be its best version of itself.
Absolutely.
Well, we're here at the 1 o'clock hour. Boy, did that go fast. What final questions does anybody have? Go ahead and throw those into the chat, and if we will answer them as they come in. And otherwise, we just want to say a huge thank you again to Addison. We really appreciate you coming and speaking with us today about the Age-Friendly Community Program. We will also post Addison's contact information on our website with this recorded webinar. It will be on our website, and so you can access it later if you'd like to rewatch it. And you can also reach out to us here at thrivewestcentral.com, and we can have a deeper conversation about anything we covered today, and then also connect you with Addison.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time today, the platform to speak. So please be in touch. I look forward to talking more.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come through, so I would say we've pretty much answered everybody's questions, and they're ready to get started on developing an age-friendly community right away. So I will patiently await for everybody to email me. That's rkeller@thrivewestcentral.com. Oh, goodness, they're flooding in already. All right. Well, thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day and a great start to a weekend approaching tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you all.